blazing balls of coffee in the morning. That's really what gets me going, vitalizes me, energizes my being at the crack of dawn as I beckon to the call of its sense of making in the morning, to the appetites of my stomach and the desires of my self-virtuousness, that through the glory of the shimmers of early morning sun that on its seasons come in through my window, but not always, because sometimes it's dark when I get my coffee and it smells ever great, looming in the nostril. Not just the nostril of light that brings visual processes to the making of coffee and the consumption of it and the seeing of coffee, just the observing of it and the steam that comes from the hot coffee and its moisture that can come to your face as you bring it close to your lip, and that really immerses you in the experience of consumption and what it means to even enjoy that coffee and to partake in its glory and bask in it as it vitalizes the senses and stimulates that release of acetylcholine, kickstarting learning to a daily process we engage in proactively from moment to moment, even the hours of our early awakening that come to some sort of sense of something, and I perceive something with greater acuity because I have my coffee and I've ingested that coffee. But prior to that coffee, I was more dazed, and it wasn't so much of a gaze that was interested in anything, but this time it was, because I had my sip of coffee and I was really scenting it and sensing something of making to mind that brings its conjurings of a visual sort and sensorium of my consciousness experience that is minding the surrounds, to its associations of that amber liquid that is of the ancients, bestowing the wisdom of bean juice upon my digestive processes and absorptions of its nutrients through my ethereal walls of my vessels that supply the necessary resources to various organs of my body, functioning in the operations of my engaging to the physicality of my surrounds in its most functional form, as I experience the optimum of subjective experience in the incremental gratification of the lip to cup and the slow spillage of drips of coffee as it moves down my lip onto my face, and I recognize that, geez, I put too much coffee in my mouth and I couldn't possibly drink it all in one hand coordinated movement to my sipping of the coffee, that in my bafflement of a qualia, of a true meaningful quality, had miscalibrated its association to what was in my proximity and which mattered in more than one way to me, but did not matter in the small qualia of my interest that was deeming something of greater importance and significance and of interest as the consciousness that required a particular direction and a metabolism to course in that direction, but not in another direction, and not in the same direction as it would otherwise if it had been supporting the endeavor to successfully ingest that coffee and to put every last approximating information that was meaningful necessary into my arm grip or lip in coordination to my gaze and minding of the coffee and how that coffee was even going to get into my mouth, because I intended to consume it and taste it with my tongue and ingest it through a specific route in which I was to drink it, and to drink it in a specific manner that required my facial muscles to operate in relation to my esophagus and my muscles that span from my mouth straight down to my gut, and which require a specific set of processes to be able to metabolize it all, and which are all part of this relation I have to coffee and that early morning glory that dawns through the beckoning of its sense making that really inspires me to get at it every day and start to think about that next coffee and where that next coffee will take me, and the pleasant associations of my interests that bound me to a meaningfulness of boundless potentials and possibilities that can connect my subjective conscious to the matters of my existence that pertain to the illuminations which are perceivable in my physical surrounds, and which I conceive and consume through the associations I make with that early morning breakfast at dawn with a coffee in hand.